Most people think identity theft and financial scams only happen to careless people.
That assumption is exactly what gets smart people hurt.
Scams today are faster, more emotional, and more convincing than ever.
They're designed to exploit trust, not ignorance.
Stick around because today we're talking about the real ways people are getting scammed, what actually works to protect yourself, and the everyday habits that may quietly increase your risk.
Today we're joined by Aaron Crowell. Aaron, you've got a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. When we're talking about identity theft, what's one of the most common ways that people get their identity stolen? And then what's one of the most overlooked prevention tools people have at their disposal but they just don't consider?
Good question. Over the years, identity theft has morphed and changed, and it went from very almost traditional methods where people would steal your mail or try to access your social security number and get a mortgage or a credit card to now it's almost exclusively online.
Mm-hmm.
So identity theft is really social engineering. And what I mean by that is they will try and compromise your social media accounts. They'll try and compromise your cell phone. They will try and compromise you. They'll try and get your names, your passwords, your dates of birth. You'll see on social media, these posts will come up and they'll ask, what was your dog in the 5th grade? Or what street did you grow up on? And they'll just go viral and people will be commenting. That's a great way to collect information that's used as password hints.
Oh, wow.
Right, to try and compromise your password. So social engineering is huge. One of the best ways to combat social engineering really is to just take a step back, think about things, don't fall for a sense of urgency. If someone is trying to compromise you online, you're typically going to get an email, a phone call, a text message. You know, there's a text message going around right now that says you have unpaid toll violations.
Right. I've gotten that one.
That is not how the toll road authority works, either the state or Harris County or some. It doesn't work that way. They want to hit you with a sense of urgency. That way you try and click on a link right now to pay that so you don't get arrested or fined. They will try and compromise you by making you think it's time sensitive, and if you don't respond right now, your life is going to forever change. Huge tool. So how do you combat that? Think things through. Take a deep breath. Nothing is so exigent that you have to respond right this instant. Scammers will typically target individuals who are either elderly or not technologically savvy, so they don't quite understand how things maybe work. I personally know of a case where an elderly woman received a phone call, and this phone call said, "Hey, I'm your grandson. I've been arrested. I need X amount of money to get out of going to jail. Please don't tell my parents. They'll get mad at me." And she fell for it. The scammers actually sent an Uber to her house, picked her up, drove her to different locations around town that had Bitcoin-enabled ATM machines. So she could basically withdraw money and then deposit it into Bitcoin, and then she could give the Bitcoin to the scammers, because once it hits an encrypted, like a cryptocurrency, there's really no tracing it at that point. So you have to do things to protect yourself. Ideally, if it's an online presence, you want to use some type of password manager. That way it's creating complex passwords. You want to be aware of what you're spending your money on. So you have the ability to know if there's any unusual credit card or debit card transactions on your bank account. You want to have the ability to use multi-factor authentication. So one of the ways you can get compromised, if they access your password, they can log into your accounts, they can change the recovery email, so you can't actually get in and recover your account. So you need some type of multi-factor authentication to prevent somebody from compromising your digital devices.
Yeah. And so in case those watching don't know, that multi-factor authentication, that's the thing that's a pain in the rear end.
Yeah.
That constantly has to text your phone every time you want to log in.
Yeah.
Pain in the butt, but huge benefit to help prevent identity theft.
Absolutely. All day long and twice on Sunday.
So, Aaron, let's just say hypothetically, and I guess it's not hypothetical really, but let's say somebody gets hacked. Let's say I get hacked, I get scammed, my identity gets compromised. Are there a few steps that I can take? Maybe what should I do immediately, and maybe some things that follow up after that?
Yeah, absolutely. Immediately, you're going to want to try and secure whatever account you believe has been compromised. And so what I mean by that is, say, for example, you believe somebody has accessed your bank account. You want to be able to get into your bank account online or through a customer service portal and put it on lockdown. You can ask them to lock the account so no more transactions in or out. You need to make sure that your recovery email is still there. You want to change passwords, ensure that the recovery phone number is still the correct phone number, because if they can actually access your account, they can change all those things. It'll lock you out. Mm-hmm. Secondly, what you want to do, depending on the scope of the attack, it's not a bad idea to contact the credit reporting bureaus. Put a fraud alert on your credit reports. It will lock it down. That way people can't open up mortgage accounts, credit card accounts, take out loans in your name. And then thirdly, you want to contact your local police department. So say, for instance, you're the victim of fraud. Somebody takes and compromises your credit card number. They start ordering things online. You've taken these steps. You've contacted your bank or your financial institution or your credit card company. You've locked it down. You've put fraud alerts on your credit reports. Even though the fraud is not necessarily occurring in the city that you live, okay? Texas allows you to report being a victim of identity theft at whatever jurisdiction you're at. So say, for example, the fraud's actually occurring in California. You can still report it to your local police department.
Okay.
You want to do that for a couple of different reasons. One, it'll give you a case number to provide to your bank or your credit card company or financial institution to show that this was a legitimate identity theft type case. Two, it will allow investigators the opportunity to try and track back what's happening in an attempt to hold the people responsible. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily a quick process, but it gets the ball rolling, because when you start talking about identity theft, fraud, scams, there's a clock that starts on the ability to recover evidence for law enforcement. Say, for example, there's video evidence or digital evidence. There's retention periods. And if you don't report it in time or the evidence isn't recovered in time, it's potentially lost. So it's important to really get that police report started. You can also report it to the FTC as well. They also provide identity theft assistance, tips, tricks.
Federal Trade Commission.
Federal Trade Commission. I'm bad on acronyms. But yeah, they can also help walk you through the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what type of scams are you seeing today as opposed to maybe scams that were coming out 3 to 5 years ago?
Yeah, the most common ones we see today typically involve cryptocurrency. You're going to receive a phone call, you're going to get an email claiming there's some type of just urgent situation. And what they need is for you to respond quickly and in a way that provides money of some type to the scammer. And they really harp on that sense of urgency. Again, like I talked about, the grandson's been arrested, he needs money so he doesn't go to jail. Mm-hmm. You would be surprised at how often that happens. I recently did a talk at a local church group in town where we just asked, we took a poll of hands in the room, and there's probably 50 or so folks there, age 50 or older. And I would wager 60% of the people raised their hands that they had been compromised in some way or the victim of a scam. Yeah, it was very surprising to me, just the amount of people. Because what happens is scammers will just cold call, and they'll say, hey, again, you've got a warrant out for your arrest. I'm Sergeant so-and-so with the Baytown Police Department, and you have a warrant for your arrest, and I need you to go buy me these Walmart gift cards so you don't go to jail. That never happens. That never happens. Law enforcement is not going to call you on the phone and demand money, and they're definitely not going to ask you to pay them in gift cards.
But you probably do shop at Walmart.
I have from time to time, but I typically don't solicit gift cards to buy my groceries. So, yeah. But that's what happens is people will then go, they take their cash, whether it's withdrawing it from an ATM or a bank, or traditionally using a debit card or something online, and they convert that currency into a digital format, into a cryptocurrency. At that point, it becomes untraceable. That's a very common scam. Another common scam is romance-based. Mm-hmm. Again, follows the cryptocurrency trend. You have folks who are looking for love in all the wrong places. Typically, it involves some type of overseas relationship, and you are, again, sending gift cards or cryptocurrency to your paramour overseas who may or may not even exist. And 9 times out of 10, they don't exist. It's just not a thing. Yeah. And this isn't some type of small-time operation. They have call centers and data centers and office parks overseas in different countries dedicated to scams. There's a couple of really great YouTube videos where it's like Scam the Scammers, and they will track back these call centers, and they will then get into their internal camera systems, and you'll see just the people sitting around in a call center just getting people out of money. You will also see folks who will get phone calls or emails from Microsoft support or an antivirus company saying, hey, you have a virus on your computer, provide me remote access to your computer so I can go and clean your computer off.
I actually got a client story about that. And it wasn't my client, but a client of mine came in, a couple, and they had said a friend of theirs up north, it might have been, I'm going to lie to you about the states, like Iowa or something. They have farmland up there. And the friend, right up in Iowa, she had received something on her computer about there's a virus. Call this number. So she calls. They start asking for information like they typically do. But this is where it got different. Like, I've heard of that before. But evidently they asked, okay, do you have any retirement accounts or anything like this? And she was like, yes, I've got a retirement account. Okay. Well, we want to make sure that your identity is not compromised because of this virus you have on your computer. So they continued to ask her, who do you have accounts with? And she'd say, Wells Fargo. Oh, okay. Well, let me check something on that. They didn't ask for account numbers, but they evidently had her call another number. And then that was supposedly Wells Fargo. They put them on three-way, or they called the other number, I guess. Put them on three-way, and they were like, yeah, it might have been hacked. And then she gave them, the other people, right, on three-way, the account number, which then gave the fraudster the account number. And then they asked, do you have any accounts elsewhere? And she said, well, I have a retirement account with JP Morgan. Nothing against JP Morgan. It's just that's where she had her money. And so they said, well, we got to make sure because there's a lot of fraud with particular advisors. So what's your advisor's name? Gave them the advisor's name and said, okay, well, let's check on our list here. And then they look down their fictitious list and decide that that guy, right, from JP Morgan was a fraudster. Wasn't, but that's what they told her. And so she got real nervous, and they said, don't worry, ma'am, we'll get it under control. You need to go to his office or call him and say that you want to withdraw your money, and you need to put it somewhere safe. It needs to go somewhere like gold. It needs to be in physical gold bars. She didn't want to look suspicious, so she did one withdrawal, said it was for a kid's house or something like that. Large amount of money. It's like $1 million she had. Take $600,000 out in one transaction, $400,000 on another transaction, turns around and doesn't withhold any taxes from this IRA, by the way, because that's what she was told to do so that she could get all the money out.
Yeah.
And then goes and buys physical gold bars with them, puts them in her house. Then the fraudsters call her back a couple weeks later and say, did you get everything taken care of? She's like, yeah, we got it in here. Okay, well, gold's probably not safe in your house. Do you have a place to keep it? I don't have a safe, anything like that. Okay, well, we've got a place for you. We'll arrange for security to come pick it up. Drove a truck to their house, picked up all the gold, took off with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this lady's out $1 million. And by the way, has to pay all the taxes on that $1 million she pulled out in 1 year.
Yep.
All because of that scam that you're talking about.
Yep. Absolute social engineering. It's good interviewing techniques, honestly. It's soliciting information that allows them to otherwise access accounts they wouldn't be able to touch.
So people that are a little bit more savvy and kind of know about these things, they're on the watch for it. But there's something that even smart folks will fall for.
Sure, yeah. I have a personal story. I won't name names to protect the innocent, but I was involved with a nonprofit, multi-million-dollar budget, many employees. We have professionals that work there. We have a controller. We do a lot of different things. And an email account got compromised. An email got sent to the executive director for a purchase order in the amount of a couple $100,000 that said, hey, this is a time-sensitive thing. Came from the controller. We need your approval to make this happen. and he clicked on the Adobe document, signed it, done. We were able to take care of the situation, but it's that easy. So even people who are technologically savvy, maybe they're a little smarter than the average bear, they work in a professional environment, you will get emails, you will get what looks to be official business correspondence saying, hey, we need immediate action on this for whatever reason. In normal course of business, if it looks legit, they're gonna sign it. So that's where that sense of urgency comes in. There is nothing so urgent that you have to make immediate decisions if it doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Take that extra 5 minutes, make a phone call, see if it is in fact a legitimate need or a legitimate transaction.
They're like really smart used car salesmen.
Absolutely. Very skilled interviewers. They are looking for points of compromise and, again, soliciting information from people. It could be as simple as names and dates of birth and the street you grew up on. It could be more complex things where they can try and reverse engineer passwords. Stuff as simple as you get an email from Facebook saying you need to log in and change your password, and you click on the link and it looks like a legitimate sign-on page for whatever account, and you sign in and turns out it's not.
Yeah.
I like to draw things down to principles, and it sounds like there's at least 3 things that these scammers will do. And I'll bring the last one in as a personal example. But one, they'll create a sense of urgency. The second is that they will appeal to authority. So if you don't do this, then the police department will send someone to come and arrest you. And then there's an appeal to a trusted contact.
Yep.
So your advisor, your bank. I pastor a church, and we've actually had recently a few attempts, lame attempts, but they're attempts nonetheless, where there will be a scammer who will get my church email address. We're not exactly sure how, but find some email addresses from members of our church. And we'll take and we'll try to recreate my email address, but they'll change like one digit in it. Like they'll exchange an O for a 0, and they'll mask it in that way. And then they'll send that email out and say, hey, this is Pastor Jordan. I've been thinking about the church, yada, yada, yada. Need your help with this, but in order to do it, we're going to need some extra funds. Could you go? And again, it's a purchase of gift cards and things like that. And our people are relatively savvy. And really what it came down to is they know me. They've never gotten an email like that from me at all. But it just keyed me in on, okay, these scammers will appeal to a trusted contact. Hey, you can trust your pastor. You can trust your financial advisor. They're not going to steer you wrong. And you can get people to let their guard down. Maybe a sense of urgency, appeal to an authority to create fear, or let your guard down because, well, you trust this person.
Absolutely.
So verify.
Yep.
Verify.
Aaron, what is something that people think protect them that actually doesn't?
Passwords is one. So when somebody secures their account, they may put a cute password in there, something that's linked to a child's name or date of birth or something along those lines. We have reached a point in time where password managers, third-party applications that create randomized passwords and then
We
store it in
use them
encrypted
here,
format.
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Password managers are a necessity. Multi-factor authentication is an absolute necessity, and whether that's using a cell phone or some type of encrypted key or something along those lines, those things are absolutely important. Just having a password with a pound sign in it isn't enough these days to really keep your account secure. Online, you cannot trust anyone. The fact that you are online and you're talking to somebody that you believe is a trusted friend or colleague or an authority figure, trust but verify, right? If it doesn't sound right, trust your gut and take that little extra time and figure it out. But as technology progresses, you have to keep up with it.
You talked earlier about targeting older adults that may not be technologically savvy, but is there a shift or a trend toward younger, more digital native type folks?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things you see a lot of, and I have younger children, is their online digital presence. And they're going to want to play online games that have access to multiplayer roles. They can interact with other people. I won't name specific games, but there's one specific one that they sell gift cards for at stores.
Mm-hmm.
There's other concerns that are outside of fraud, but it's super easy for somebody to say, hey, can you send me $10 through that? And they're scamming kids to basically send money through these online gaming platforms. And the kids are getting their parents to buy gift cards at the store, and they're promptly just sending money. And once it's gone, you can't trace it.
Yeah.
There are other ways to scam folks out of money using these third-party financial applications, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. It's super easy to compromise those, and kids use those all day long.
Right.
I also utilize those types of applications now, but it took me a while to get into it. It's almost secondhand nature now with the younger generation to use technology for these things. The tap on your phone, using hooked into your Apple account or whatever. Super easy to compromise those, and especially if you lose control of your digital device, your entire life's on there. And if a kid or a young adult loses their phone and all their bank account information and all that's on there, and they can compromise the password or the security features on the phone, they lose it. They lose access to the accounts, they lose the money.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody gets scammed. They think they get scammed. They file a police report. What's a realistic outcome that they could expect?
Yeah, so let's walk through what that looks like. Ultimately, unless you have a bad guy at the bank when it happens and the officer goes and arrests them, these are not quick cases to work. If you were the victim of fraud, somebody steals your identity, compromises a financial account of yours, you file a police report. That typically involves you either going to the law enforcement agency to make the report or have somebody come to your house. You're going to provide them all this information. What that means is you, as the victim, are going to have to compile any banking records, any contact information for the financial institutions, receipts, text messages, emails, phone call, and like voice recordings that you had with the scammers. All that evidence has to be collected. You'll turn that over to the law enforcement agency. That agency will then in turn have to obtain records from the financial institution. So there's legal process involved in that, and that can take a week, it can take a month. There's just no telling at that point. You then have to start tracking back the chain of events. Where did the fraud occur at? Was it inside the United States? Was it outside the United States? If it's outside the United States, is it a country that we have an agreement with that will cooperate with criminal investigations? There's a lot of moving parts. So that can take, again, weeks, months. It just depends. So all of that has to be done. The officer has to build a case. They have to present it to the local prosecutor's office before criminal charges can be obtained. At that point, a warrant is filed. Person is potentially arrested, or you try and track them down. They go before the court. It could take years before they even go to court if they're charged.
Yeah.
So it is not a quick process on the criminal side. On the civil side, the non-criminal side, that's why we suggest filing a police report. You can go to your bank or your financial institution. You can institute this fraud case that can allow them to freeze the account, potentially credit the funds back to your account if you're a victim. That way you're not out money. I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but more often than not, if it is a fraud or a theft case that involves your bank account or a financial institution, you're going to get that money back at some point. Maybe quick, may not. Where you really lose out on that money is if you convert it to gold and somebody steals the physical gold from you, or if you convert it to a digital cryptocurrency.
The reason why on the civil side it would take a little longer, I don't have experience in it, but just from the bank's point of view, there's probably fraudsters that are out there trying to trick the bank into saying, hey, I was compromised.
Yep.
So give me my money.
Yep.
And they have to verify that's actually true, right?
Yeah, that's part of the reason why we highly suggest filing a police report. There are criminal penalties involved if you make a false report to a law enforcement agency for financial gain. So that tends to give a little credibility, I think, in the bank's eyes that you're trying to do things the right way. The banks and other financial groups have internal fraud investigators, and they will work with law enforcement on their side to try and just figure out exactly what happened. Because that happens all the time. How often does somebody go and purchase some expensive item on a credit card and then cancel the charge or file a dispute or whatever,
Right.
say we never received the product, meanwhile it's sitting in a box in your closet, right, as you go through the dispute process. So you have to do things to really legitimize what's happening to you as a victim. And you just really have to make sure you're checking those boxes. Make that law enforcement report, freeze the credit accounts, your credit reports, things like that.
Yeah. So what's the one thing that you wish people understood about how financial crimes actually work?
Oh, there is nothing so urgent that you have to make an immediate choice now to just spend money in an unusual way. Trust your gut. If you're receiving a phone call or an email out of the blue that's saying, hey, we need $10 million, probably not legitimate. There is no prince waiting overseas to give you his father's fortune.
Yeah.
Right? That does not happen in the real world.
Well, I'm not cute enough anyway.
Yeah, right. Story of my life. Even if it's just like a terrible medical emergency, there are ways for you to go and make sure it's a legitimate issue, and creditors aren't going to bang your door down trying to get paid before somebody gets this life-saving attention. It's just not going to happen. So just take your time, think through the problem, and work it out.
We say that a lot on the channel too. It's stop, breathe, think before making a decision.
Yeah.
This would be a good example of why that works.
Absolutely.
So,
Is there something that most people probably do most days that unknowingly or unwittingly puts their money at risk?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all the time. So I talk a lot about situational awareness in other aspects of law enforcement. It's very important to be aware of where you're at, who's around you, surroundings, safety issues. People go about their day all day long and they don't pay attention to what's going on. It could be as simple as you go to a retail store and you're at a self-checkout and you pop your card in and you type in your PIN number, not paying attention to who's watching. Or you are talking on your phone, or you're sending a text message and you set it down and you leave it unlocked somewhere and somebody snatches your phone. They've got access to everything. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Make sure that you are keeping your personal information secure, whatever that looks like. Stuff as simple as I don't keep a wallet in my back pocket anymore.
yeah.
I keep it in a front pocket in a specialized kind of wallet. That way it's a little harder for somebody to reach in and snatch it. Don't leave purses or wallets in the front seat of your car while you're shopping. Don't give the bad guys a target to bust out your window and snatch your stuff out of the car. Take proactive steps. And I'm not talking about complicated measures. Keep your phone locked. Keep your computer locked when you're away from it. Keep your wallet in your pocket, not in the front seat of your car. Just very simple things to protect yourself.
So I want to shift gears just a little bit. I've known you for half my life now. Well, a little over half my life now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're old. Wow. Yeah.
Just had a birthday. You got one coming up.
That's right.
You're now a lieutenant with the Baytown Police Department
I am.
in Texas. With first responders, especially, they get to retire usually, or have the opportunity to retire a little bit before the general public because of the way y'all's retirement benefits are set up and everything. But when you retire earlier, a lot longer potential retirement, what challenges do you see first responders having in retirement?
That's a great question. So just to back up a little bit, I've been in law enforcement 25 years now. When I first got into law enforcement, retirement was not in the forefront of my mind. I did not think about securing my financial future. I was more concerned about chasing bad guys and putting them in jail and the adrenaline of it. One of the things that I worry about, and that over the past couple of years, I've really worked to improve upon is financial future. And what I mean by that is healthcare. In retirement, what do costs look like? You're transitioning from a steady paycheck every month that could have overtime, or a lot of police officers work secondary employment or extra jobs to bring in extra income. And when you retire, you've got just a monthly fixed income stream, and it is not necessarily going to be the same amount of money. And so you really have to set your lifestyle up to financially be smart about what you're doing. Healthcare costs for me are huge in retirement. I'm married, I have children. So I want to make sure that their future is secure. And in retirement, I have to be set up in a way that's going to be a thing. As a young police officer, I didn't think those things. I figured my main pension would be just the be-all, end-all. I'm under the Texas Municipal Retirement System. It's a defined contribution plan, and it's actually pretty solvent plan that
Good
we're in.
plans.
But when I look at retirement numbers now, yeah, I can live off that, but is it going to be the lifestyle that I want to live in retirement? And so one of the things I think as a young officer you have to be aware of is there are supplemental retirement programs, for lack of a better term. I'm not a finance guy, so maybe I'm not using the right terminology, but there are supplemental retirements out there that you can start contributing to if you don't want to live beyond your means. One of the traps that I fell into, and I mean, I can't tell you how many officers I know of fall into, is they live off their overtime and secondary employment. They are trying to live a lifestyle that doesn't necessarily match their steady income, their base salary. And so they are then stuck in that trap of chasing their tail for extra money.
So the family's expected standard of living may be elevated. You're doing these extra jobs to make that standard of living stretch.
Absolutely.
And then potentially at some point that could go away, or then you're then forced to continue those extra jobs in retirement.
Absolutely. I spent a significant portion of my career as a detective, and you were often working long extra hours. And so I haven't actually worked secondary employment since probably 2012, but that's when I went to a specialized investigative unit, and we were on call 24/7.
Yeah.
And so I was just raking in overtime for a long time. The benefit of that is that bolsters my retirement, because overtime, being part of your salary, goes into my TMRS account, and so it helps build it up on that back end, whereas secondary employment doesn't necessarily do that.
Unless you do that on your own.
Unless you do it on your own, right? You have to be smart about it, and I was not smart about it when I was working extra jobs or 1099 income. I was lucky if I was withholding taxes off the 1099, and I would take the hickey at the end of the year when I filed my taxes. You have to be really smart about your money, and you do not live beyond your means. And it's easy to say that now, 25 years in. I'm 47 years old. I have the benefit of hindsight. The honest answer is I wasn't smart about my financial future until about almost 3 years ago.
So, Aaron, when we think about police officers, first responders, firefighters, most of the time, responsible, attentive, alert people, educated people. But one thing about education is a lot of times it can be pigeonholed. When our education can be fixated on one thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that because a person is responsible and educated in their field, that they're educated in all fields.
Absolutely.
So speaking financially, I don't imagine there's probably a lot of schooling in first responders training that deals with financial planning, investing, saving, and so on. If you could speak to that as a seasoned law enforcement professional, and you could talk about it from a financial aspect, what would you tell the up-and-coming, energetic, 25-year-old you?
So there's a couple different things I would do. There are a lot more financial health programs available for education. So one of the things I've seen over the past couple years is a real trend towards financial health for first responders, and it's actual educational programs. It's online, there's in-person seminars. Take advantage of those things. You have to learn how to set short, medium, and long-term goals for finances. It is so important not to just get caught in that desire for the next biggest toy. For me, I used to like to purchase guns, or I would want a new vehicle, or I would want all these things, and I was constantly flipping vehicles every couple of years, buying something new. Set some realistic goals based upon your finances. Determine where you want to be. I was raised by a banker. My dad was in the banking industry for almost 30 years. I just assumed I would inherit the knowledge that he had, and I did not. Don't just assume everything's going to work out in the end. You have to be prepared. And this type of education is just as important as anything else we do, continuing education-wise, for our field. You have to understand things like the penal code and the transportation code and the statutes that govern your job. Well, your financial health depends on those same types of things. You have to educate yourself. You can't just assume it's going to work out.
Eddie, can I ask you a question? As an advisor and as a certified financial planner, I've heard you do a lot of teaching about some things that Aaron's touched on, which is the aspect of living within the means of your ordinary income and not the overtime. Because I've heard you talk about a lot of refinery workers can get all the overtime they want. Yep. And that creates a conundrum. It creates a bit of a problem, a financial problem. Can you talk about that from your perspective?
Yeah. The main thing with the overtime in of itself, awesome opportunity, right? The awesome opportunity that you get to do extra things for your family that you normally wouldn't be able to do in the moment because of these extra jobs you're able to work. And it's kind of part of your job. Like with the refinery workers, they're working in the refinery. Law enforcement, they're the guard football games, right? They'll direct traffic. They'll do things outside of the department to make that overtime. So awesome opportunity. And I'm all about hard work. I think hard work's the keystone to success. However, I think what gets lost, and we've talked about it in undertones here, is within that overtime, people aren't saving any of it. Yeah. They're spending it. And then they're going into debt a lot of times because they're relying on that overtime. So in other words, you're spending money you don't have and then going to get the money to pay for it and paying interest along the way. And so we get into these habitual cycles where it's just you're chasing your tail. And all of that is not necessarily on the surface bad. What happens is you get caught in that trap when you get to retirement, and it's like we've only saved, in your case with TMRS, it's like that's fine for what your salary was, but there's these other familial expectations at that point, or your own desires that you're wanting to fulfill, and then you don't have the money for it. So how are you going to get it? And unfortunately, a lot of people, they look to that debt market, credit cards, loans, Christmas loans, things of this nature so that they can sustain that same lifestyle. And so, again, nothing wrong with the hard work and the effort and the money. It's just when it comes down to retirement, you have to save some of that if you're going to keep that lifestyle the same.
Yeah. And ideally, you can not just supplement, but in a sense, you can supercharge your savings and your retirement if you're smart about it and you use that overtime, you use that time and a half, you use that double time, and you start pushing that away and segmenting that off into some savings accounts, retirement account, brokerage account. Yeah. Something's going to earn some interest, and then your money works for you. That money's working overtime.
Right. And learning how to defer some of those taxes. I think that gets lost in a lot. There's a lot of power in deferring taxes along the way. So taking away some practical points from this whole conversation, what is something that the viewers can look at for 2026? What are some things to avoid in financial crime?
So avoid traps, avoid responding to unsolicited emails, asking for money, or trying to lure you into some type of social engineering scam. Protect yourself by not displaying your PIN number. Protect yourself by not leaving valuables in a car where they can be easily stolen. There's a big trend right now called jugging. If y'all have ever heard of this, folks will go to the bank, they'll make a cash withdrawal, they'll come out and openly display the envelope as they walk to their car. They will get followed off by bad guys in the parking lot. They'll go inside another store while leaving the envelope on their front seat or in their glove box or in their center console, and the window gets smashed out, their money gets taken. I bring that up to say, just do things to protect yourself. Use a little bit of common sense, and I understand that that's a variable term there, but use a little bit of common sense. And
what's common?
Yeah, what's common, right? And just, if it doesn't sound right, it's probably not right.
Yeah. So is there some technology as well out there that people think is safe, but it doesn't really protect them?
There's a couple of different things that I can think of offhand, typically all in the digital world. You have to make sure when you are using a password manager, you have to make sure it's from a credible or a reliable source. You don't want to just do a Google search for a password manager and download the first thing that you get. You need to do a little bit of research. You need to really explore multi-factor authentication. You want to make sure that the secondary part of that multi-factor authentication, the first part is usually your username and password. Mm-hmm. The second part is going to be either your phone that gets a text message. It's going to be a secondary email address that you get a code sent to. It's going to be an encrypted key or a USB drive that you plug in that has a key on it, not something that's just easily compromised. Ultimately, as technology advances, you have to advance with it. And what I mean by that is you have to do your research. You have to educate yourself on what works and what doesn't. And then you have to go with it.
And that's happening so fast now.
It happens so fast. And gone are the days of me being able to just easily type in a query in a search engine and just pick the first thing that pops up.
So I had a client a couple of years ago, and basically given an example that demonstrates the power of having someone that knows you and that you trust when you're dealing with your larger part of your net worth. He volunteers at a food bank, been retired a long time, great guy. And we have a really good relationship. All our clients we have a great relationship with and know them pretty well. And several years back, I don't know, it was like 2017, something like that. He had emailed me and asked for some money. And we have a procedure here, like most financial institutions do, where we can't just accept an email for those kind of requests. We actually have to reach out, call, verify. There's forms normally that you have to sign, even if it's e-signature. But he had emailed, and I explained to him back then that this is a no-go. We can't just take an order over in an email. So he's always called me ever since. Well, there was a morning I came in a couple years ago and was sitting at my desk, and I get these emails. One was an email from the back office saying that the client that I'm speaking about had called asking to change his phone number. Very out of character because he doesn't really ever know who to deal with at the back office. Then right on the heels of that, I got an email from his email address. And I mean, we get trained how to check these things, like might be a digit off or something like that. It was from his email address. And it basically said, very formal, by the way, and this guy's far from formal. Eddie, good morning. How are you? I would like to get a distribution form from Pershing, which he doesn't even know who Pershing is. I'd like to get one of their distribution forms and so that I can take a distribution from my IRA, listed the account number, and could I email that form to his email address? Mm-hmm. Automatic red flag for me. But one, it was way out of character. Two, we can't act off an email. And so there's steps and procedures that are in place to protect people. First thing I did was I called him. I said, hey, man, where you at? Well, I'm at the food bank volunteering. Oh, okay, great. Did you email me this morning? Nope. Did you call the back office? Nope. Well, we got a problem. So I explained what it was, got off the phone with him. There's automatic procedures we have in place to deal with this kind of thing. Not going to get into today. But if I didn't know him, intimately know him and his behaviors, things like that, would have been a lot simpler just if we were allowed to just take an email and act off of that. And then that guy would have had everything. We're talking about a couple $1 million, to your point. What caught all this is because the bad actor evidently got a Trojan, got all this guy's passwords because he was looking at stuff on the internet he shouldn't have been looking at. But they got his information, passwords, all his bank accounts, computer, everything, and had his account numbers. So all he was lacking was the two-factor authentication. So what happened was he tried to get into his account with us, tried to get in online. It said, oh, we got to send a code to your cell phone. Well, obviously they didn't have the cell phone, so they called the back office because the number was on there to try to change it. Well, our back office has a procedure that you have to go through the advisor to make that change. You can't just call in and do it. Yep. So again, things to protect the situation.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
Financial scams, they usually don't start with technology. They start with behavior.
If this episode helped you, share it with someone that you care about because awareness spreads faster than fraud.